Today I'm bringing on the CEO of a new exploration company called RUA Gold. I wasn't tossing him softballs in this interview, I was asking him some tough questions, and I was very pleased with his answers. However, keep in mind that this is a sponsored video, it contains forward-looking statements, and investing in exploration stocks is very risky. This video should not be taken as investment advice, and you should always do a lot of your own research before investing any money at all. You can look into the video description below for a full disclaimer, and with that, let's get right into it. All right, thanks for joining me, Robert. Why don't you start by giving me an overview of RUA?
Yeah, RUA is a really exciting company, and you wouldn't have seen it come up before, most likely because we're brand new to the market. We only closed the RTO, and that's how we went public in the start of March. So we've had 3 or 4 months of trading now behind us. We've never traded below our RTO price. So the company was halted at 10 cents. We've come out and the market really loves our assets. They love high-grade gold. They love New Zealand. And that's what we are. We're an exploration company looking for gold in New Zealand. And we feel like New Zealand's a very underexposed and underexplored jurisdiction. RUA means two in Maori, and that's because we have 2 assets in New Zealand, one on the North Island called Glamorgan and one on the South Island called Reefton. Reefton is a more advanced exploration asset, and actually before we closed the RTO, we were private for 4 years. We raised $8 million privately amongst some really key supportive shareholders, and we moved that proof of concept forward on those Reefton assets. And that proof of concept is really, is there gold in the ground? And the Reefton district is a district, and we can get into it when we talk more about the assets, but that district produced 2 million ounces at 24.5 grams a ton gold. And that's really, really high grade. The average gold being produced right now in the world is averaging less than a gram a ton. So we're talking 25 times what the average gold grade is on worldwide production today. And it hasn't really been touched in any significant way for the last 70 years. And so we're in this district that hasn't had a lot of technology applied to it on the advancements that have happened over the 70 years. And there's a really big opportunity. And so that 4 years we were private on the Reefton assets. We did all that surface exploration work. We did all the UAV magnetics and the mapping and things like that. Well, what I'd call I'm a finance guy, so I call that the boring, slow, methodical work that the market actually doesn't like. And that's why we stayed private during that phase of the business. Now we're drilling, and we're ready to actually let the drill bit be the truth serum. And that's why we're public, and that's why we're seeing good talk in our share price. The other asset in the North Island, that's a newer stage asset. We picked that up last October in 2023. And that we see as a real neurology story. And neurology is very much not in the Oxford Dictionary. This neurology just means it's right next to a really big deposit called WKP, which OceanaGold have. And OceanaGold's market cap is 1.9 billion. And we've got the asset right next door to them. And we think it has all the same surface features and geology of WKP. And so we're really excited to start exploring that.
Okay. When it comes to gold mining, you don't hear a lot about New Zealand. So why don't you tell me more about exploring and mining there?
Yeah, Jordan, I mean, that's a really good question. And that's the value proposition to your database or your investors that are watching, is really no one is looking in New Zealand. And it's a really good jurisdiction. I mean, obviously, all the mining CEOs, if you watch their interviews, everyone talks about tier 1 jurisdictions, and it can mean anything to anyone. To me, New Zealand is a great jurisdiction because it's got all the first world infrastructure, all the rules and policies, and everything works there properly. We've got highways, rail, water, electricity. So just the basic things. We have a really good infrastructure and a good working political system. But on top of that, because there was a change in politics in November of 2023, and to maybe take a step back, in the last 30 years, why there hasn't been much mining in New Zealand is because in the past, there's been a very left-wing government in power. And it's caused that country to go into a recession. There's no jobs, there's no economic growth. The New Zealand dollar is terrible against the US dollar. And so there's an opportunity now. And what happened in November last year was that essentially the population are sick of this downward trend of their economy. The young people are leaving and going to Australia to work on mines because there's no jobs in New Zealand. And so that political party was voted out overwhelmingly. And the new political party that came in November is headed up by a guy called Chris Luxon. He was the CEO of Air New Zealand up until 2020. So he comes in with a really business-focused background. He wants to balance the budget in New Zealand. He wants to create economic growth. And he's already committed in his mining strategy plan. He wants to double mining exports in the next 10 years. So now you've got this amazing first world jurisdiction with all the infrastructure and the skilled labor and that side of the business, which is a huge barrier to entry for some countries. But on top of that, you've got a political party that wants more mining, wants to double mining exports. And so what they did in the first 6 months of being in power is they actually started introducing a bill, and it's now going through the second reading in Parliament, whereby they take permitting for new mining projects from what is on average in the world, somewhere in a like 4+ year range to get a mine permitted. New Zealand have introduced a bill to get that permit process done in 6 months. And so that's a huge win. Again, it demonstrates the politics there is really supportive of mining. But not only that, you don't have the risk of someone investing $1 today and having to wait 4 years before that mine is built. That's a long time to hold an investment. And most investors, including myself, aren't in there to sit on our hands for 4 years waiting for a mine permit. So it's a really good opportunity to be getting into New Zealand. And we've fortunately got first mover advantage.
So that 6-month time frame, that's really, really fast. Is that 6 months after you've done all the studies and you've submitted the paperwork, 6 months to approval? That's what they're shooting for?
That's exactly it, Jordan. So right now, as an exploration company, we're not going into that 6-month process. We're right now, we can get drill permits, and we have been getting drill permits very easily. And we make sure we follow that process very rigorously, and we have a really good team on site that do that. What this is doing is, once you've done your drilling and you've proven up a resource in the ground and you're ready to start building a mine, that's when you then have to wait the 6-month period to get all the consents to build a mine. And so when you present that to the board that they're putting together, you present your environmental impact assessment, you present your mine plan, and you tell them exactly what you're doing. So you know exactly what your footprint looks like, you know exactly how many people you're employing, how much it's going to cost. Because really what they're looking to do is they're trying to prioritize jobs in New Zealand. They're trying to prioritize foreign investment. And so if you're bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars to build a new mine, which will then deliver royalties, deliver corporate income tax, deliver employment, then they're going to be all for it, and they're going to be helping push this one through.
Okay, why don't you tell me about your team's background and how your team's background is relevant to what you're trying to do?
Yeah, Jordan, another really good point. I mean, objectively, whenever I'm investing in a company, the two things I'll look for is the assets and where they are, and the team that are doing it. Because unfortunately in mining, there's a lot of people that don't do it very well, and there's some people that do it really well repetitively. And so I'll encourage your viewers to look at our management team. We have a chairman called Lennox-King. He's an 11% shareholder of the company, so he's got a lot of skin in the game. He's done this multiple times before. His most recent story was Roxgold. And Roxgold, he took from where he took over the company, and it was a 40 mil market cap company. It was a bit of a rudderless company, again, being mismanaged. He took control over that company, and he took it all the way through to building a mine in Burkina Faso, and then selling it as a package to Fortuna Mining in a period of 7 years for 1.3 billion. So a really good success story. But that's important because his footprint in Burkina Faso was very similar to what we're doing here. Small, high grade, really good economics and low capex, because it's a high grade ore deposit. So if you have high grade, you have a really good opportunity to make the project succeed. And so he's done that before. I'm personally coming out of, and I'm the CEO of the company, I'm personally coming out of a group called Aris Mining. I founded Aris Mining in 2020 in partnership with Neil Woodyer, our CEO. I was the CFO. I'm a chartered accounting background. We built Aris Mining from 2020. We started as a $5 million shell company Today, it's a 750 odd million market cap company, 2 operations in Colombia, generating a lot of free cash flow. And again, another good high-grade gold story. Both Burkina Faso and Colombia, very difficult jurisdictions. We're very excited to be in New Zealand. We're very excited to be in the first world, where doing business is a lot easier. And we're excited of being in from the get-go with this RUA Gold story. Other notable names on the board is Mario Vetro, started K92 Mining, took it from a $2 million purchase from Barrick, and that at its peak was a $2 billion market cap company. Tyron Breitenbach is an investment banker come geologist with over 20 years of geology and capital markets experience. And then the actual management team itself. Simon Henderson is our COO. He's our boots on the ground geologist with over 50 years experience in geology, most of which has been in New Zealand. So if you think about the amount of knowledge that you can build up in your career when you focus on one jurisdiction and one permitting process and the contacts Simon Henderson is an absolute linchpin to this story, and very lucky to have him. And then finally, our CFO, Zeenat Lokhandwala. She was the CFO for Great Bay Royalties, another very successful exploration startup company. Brings a lot of knowledge to the team and also is on a fractional basis, so very good for a G&A overhead. She's on a 50% basis just while we're starting up, and we're quite a simple company at this stage.
Yeah. Are you from New Zealand?
That's a great point, Jordan. Yeah, half our board is actually from New Zealand. I was born in New Zealand. Oliver, our largest shareholder and chairman, was from New Zealand, and we all somewhat left because of the exact problem that's being identified now. There's no jobs there. It's hard to prosper. And so you end up moving out, and that's the problem they're trying to tackle right now.
Well, that's an all-star cast that you have there. I really like to see that. But something else I look for when I'm looking to invest in a company is that management is well aligned with shareholders. So would you mind sharing more about how much stock management owns? I know you mentioned the chairman owns a lot of stock, but how much stock do the other people own? And also, how much was paid for that stock?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jordan. And I'm all too aware of I'm based in Vancouver, and I'm all too aware of the Vancouver promote stories that are out there in the market. It's very important to us. So management and insiders hold 30% of this company. And the actual average buy price, and I'm going to be talking in Canadian dollar terms now, the average buy price for these insiders, including myself, is around 14 cents. Today, we're trading at 19 cents. And you have to also remember that 14 cents being put in was in the private company phase when we're still proving out concept. So that's actually the highest risk point to be putting money in. And they were so confident with the assets, and they're so happy with the jurisdiction that everyone's putting money in, writing real checks. There's no 1 cent stock flying around. There's no free stock given away to anyone. This is people writing real checks and putting skin in the game. And so at 14 cents, where they put it in, and we're trading at 19 cents, anyone that's coming into the story now is almost coming in at a de-risked point, but almost at the same price as us. And so we're all aligned. We all want to take this to the next level, and we've all taken it to the next level before in other companies.
Awesome. That's exactly what I want to hear. No one got a bunch of free stock or cheap stock or penny stock or whatever. And
yeah, it's important. I mean, there's too many stories where someone says, "Oh yeah, I hold 11% of the company, but I paid a dime for it all." So we're aligned together.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive into the company's projects. What are you guys working on there?
Yeah, so we've got, as mentioned, we've got 2 projects. Let's start in the North Island. The North Island is our earlier stage project. In 2024, it's really a permitting story. We just picked up Glamorgan last October, 2023, and we picked it up from OceanaGold. They actually had to relinquish it. In New Zealand, when you get an exploration permit, you have 10 years to declare a resource on that exploration permit. Otherwise, you relinquish it back to the government. And we had our eye on this property, and OceanaGold weren't spending money on it. They have a property, and I mentioned it's a neurology story. So they have a property 3 kilometers south, and it's got a resource already declared of 1 million ounces at 15.9 grams a ton. Again, remember that the average grade in the world is 1 gram a ton or less than 1 gram a ton. Really high grade story. And importantly, Simon Henderson, our COO, he was the geologist that discovered that deposit. And so when he saw the land 3 kilometers just north of it be relinquished, we were jumping on it. And the reason it was relinquished and the reason OceanaGold didn't spend the money on it is, as I said, the last 30 years in New Zealand, it's been very difficult to expand mining operations. There's been mining operations working there. And just 10 kilometers south of this area we're talking about now is the Waihi mine, which has produced over 10 million ounces of gold, and OceanaGold have operated that. There's been a lot of gold production, but it's been very hard to expand. And so when OceanaGold are in this area, they don't want to look and work on everything. They're focusing on WKP because that's their number one sort of target. That's the closest to their Waihi infrastructure. And so they can utilize all their same infrastructure they have down there to actually mine this deposit. And so they didn't do enough work on Glamorgan. And we were able to pick that up for as little as 4,000 New Zealand dollars. And so when you think about putting a drill into that and finding some gold and the value creation for shareholders, it's unprecedented. You're picking up something that we think has a huge potential to be a company maker all by itself. And we picked it up for $4,000. And we've got the geologist that actually has had discoveries in this exact area before. So that one's earlier stage. We're permitting it right now. We've got drone concessions granted last month. We expect to be drilling there at the end of the year. And that's our what we'd call a greener fields type exploration. But we're fairly confident with the team we have behind us on that one. As I said, the South Island asset, that's the advanced one. That's the one where we were private for 4 years before going public. So we've done a lot of surface work there. We're drilling at the moment. And so when we have our drill holes turning, we've done a lot of groundwork behind that to know exactly where we should be aiming. And again, that district in the south, it's called the Reefton district. And that's where we have 56,000 hectares of tenements. And that's where we really see an opportunity because there's historic mining, there's historic production there already. And so it was mined up until the 50s. And they actually had to stop because they didn't have the technology as they went deeper to dewater. They hit the water table and they couldn't dewater these mines. But they produced 2 million ounces of gold at 25 grams a ton. So really high grade. And they just stopped because they hit a water table. Now today, it's very common to dewater an underground mine. It happens in every underground mine as they get deeper. And so we can just apply today's technology, not brand new cutting edge technology that's untested, very much tested technologies. And we can go deeper and really take advantage of the old workings. And so we're drilling there right now. We expect to have drill results coming out to the market in late July, August. And it'll be a drilling story. So that's the catalyst your viewers should be looking for is drill, and forever keep letting the drill bit be the truth serum. And rather than trust me just sitting here waving my hands about how amazing it is, they can actually see the amount of torque that the share price will have once we start delivering on drill results.
Okay. When it comes to exploration, it's usually answering a series of unanswered questions. So, what's the primary unanswered question that you want to answer right now?
That's a really good way to put it, Jordan. And I like it because the question, and we'll focus on the Reefton assets because that's really where we're doing the bulk of the exploration program. The question we need to know is, do these ore veins that have been mined historically at a really high grade, do they run deep, and how deep do they run? Because that tells us how much gold is still in the ground. And a really good indication of that, and without us doing all our own drilling, a really good indication of that is our neighbor. Our neighbor is a private Australian company called Federation Mining. We've got 4 of these historic underground mines on our property, and that's all the underground mines that we're going to go deeper on, and we're going to test at how deep they go. Federation have 1 historic underground mine on their property. They just actually paid this week, and we're sitting here on the 28th of June. This week, they just paid OceanaGold for that piece of property. They just paid them $30 million US for that 1 underground historic mine. And they've drilled under that mine, and they found gold all the way down to 1,500 meters of depth. Right now, where we're exploring, our historical underground mine went down 200 meters. As much as it's an unanswered question, we're really encouraged by the fact that the neighbor has already found gold mineralization as deep as 1,500 meters. It's an unanswered question because we haven't had the time to do our drilling, but we're very confident on the answer we're going to get out of it.
How much is it going to cost you to test that?
Sure. So we actually, when we closed this RTO back in March, we closed it with a shell company that had $7.5 million of treasury, and we're talking Canadian dollars here. And so that's given us a really good treasury balance to actually do this testing. So we've allocated, up until today, we've been spending around $1.5 to $2 million on drilling on our first 5,000 meters that we've already announced and is in the market as of April. The next phase of drilling will be another $2 million, and that's to test this new target and go further at depth. So through the next, let's call it 6 months, around $2 million is allocated, and we still have, as of March 31, our last financials, we still have $5 million in the bank. And so we've got $2 million allocated to this next phase of drilling, and then depending on the results of that, we'll allocate another $2 million to phase 3 of drilling. And so it's really that our burn rate right now sees us with enough cash to go through to April next year, and we can keep drilling on our current trajectory until that time. And we're also saving some cash to make sure we have enough cash to drill in Glamorgan in our North Island asset from December, when we expect to have drill permits in and drilling contractors mobilized, until that April time. So really on our trajectory, exploration program and to deliver results to the shareholders, we have all the way from now until Q1 next year. And if we can't deliver in that time, then we're going to need to go back to the market. But based on all the work done today, we're comfortable with that timeline we've got ahead of us.
Okay, and with that $2 million budget that you have for this next drill program, how many drill holes are you going to put in, and how deep are they going to be?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So right now on our current target, it's called Murray Creek in this Reefton district. And as mentioned, that Murray Creek historic mine went down 200 meters. And then it actually hit a fault line. And a fault line is where these old timers, they followed this quartz vein down and they mined all the gold out of this quartz vein where it's located. And then what happens is, as the tectonic plates shift in the ground, that fault line can actually move that vein somewhere else. And they didn't have the technology to actually understand where that fault vein went. And so we've come in, we've done the surface exploration work, and now we're looking and we think we found where that vein moved off to. And so we do two things. We call it undermine and near mine drilling. The undermine is exactly as it sounds. We drill a hole underneath the old mine workings that went down 200 meters. So those holes are around 350 meters in length. And then near mine is on surface. We think we found the jog in how that vein alteration system moved. And that's from surface. We'll drill down 150 to 200 meters on that one. So we'll have two drill rigs running, one running shallower, one running deeper. The cost of drilling in New Zealand, helped a bit by the weak New Zealand dollar, is around $300 to $350 a meter, US dollars a meter, and it's year-round. So there's no seasonality to it. You can keep the drills running all year long.
Okay, so it's pretty affordable to drill there compared to a lot of places. How long does it take to get the assay results back?
The assay results, fortunately, we're right next to Australia that has a very long mining history. And so there's a lot of assay labs there. It takes around 4 weeks by the time we send it and get the results back.
So if I can sum up the investment, you're on a world-class jurisdiction with a highly successful team that's aligned with shareholders, and you have prospective projects to drill. But how much do we pay for that as an investor? How much is that going to cost us? What's your market cap?
Our market cap right now in US dollar terms is ranges between $25 and $30 million. And so we're trading right now on the OTCQB at around between 13 and 15 cents a share. And I'll just encourage viewers, and this is probably not normal for most interviews you're ever going to do on this with a mining stock. I've been buying stock openly in the market because right now I personally see ourselves as undervalued. And so all my filings are public. Whenever I buy shares, I make sure I declare it publicly, as you legally have to. And so you've got management and insiders buying shares at these levels. If that's not a telltale sign that we think we're undervalued, then I don't know what is. I mean, every CEO will always sit here and say their company is undervalued, but there's only going to be a few of them that are actually buying shares and putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah, and executives can sell for all sorts of reasons, but they only buy for one reason. Can you just recap for us quickly over the next 12 to 18 months, what kind of news flow investors can look forward to?
Sure. So right now, people can look at news results coming out from the Reefton district in the South Island, which will be drilling, and more drilling. I also come from a long background of M&A type activity, and there's a lot of opportunities still in New Zealand. And so we'll always be looking creatively at whether there's a good opportunity to roll up more land in New Zealand. And we really think there is. And I see that more in the South Island, where there's still quite a few tenements up for grabs. In the North Island, as I said, it's a permitting story. We expect to have what they call minimum impact access permits within the next month. And that'll allow us to do soil sampling and mapping. And by the time we get to the end of the year, when we get drill permits, that's being the next catalyst, we'll have had 6 months to do all that surface exploration work, so that when we plan our drill targets, we'll have a whole lot of data behind us.
If investors have more questions about RUA, who can they contact at the company, and how can they contact that person?
Sure. So we have a landing page on our website, which both you can subscribe to, and you can also reach our info@ruagold.com. And depending on the question, we'll triage it to either myself or my CFO or my COO, and we can answer any questions that you guys have. And that was info@ruagold.com, or on our website at www.ruagold.com.
Okay, excellent. Thanks so much, Robert. I really appreciate this. This has been very insightful.
Thanks very much, Jordan.